Hey guys, it's Thorn. This is a video response to Avalon at Avalon Spiritual Journey. I'm sorry, I just forgot your channel name, but Avalon, who's very sweet, and I will put her channel link below, so you should go subscribe if you haven't already, although I imagine many of you do. Anyway, she did a video about her own tarot wish list, and I don't know if you guys remember, I guess it was 2 summers ago, so the summer of tarot, where I decided that I'd been screwing around casually for long enough and I was actually going to learn what I was doing. And in the tradition of Thorn being crazy, I did what I always do, and I threw myself into the thing completely and sort of consciously became obsessed with it. And I started doing a correspondence course, and I started reading all the books and doing all of this essay writing, and just really, really got involved in tarot. And anyway, over the course of the last couple of years, I have acquired a number of decks. And so while Avalon was talking about her own tarot wish list, and I don't really have an active wish list right now just because I have so many decks. And when I read, I only have a couple of decks that I actually use for reading. The rest to me are pieces of artwork, or they're novelty decks, or I keep them because I'm just an obsessive crazy collector or whatever. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you, this is actually going to be 2 videos. So this video, I'm going to show you my favorite tarot decks. I am going to use this video in order to make your tarot wish list worse, is my goal. And then in my next video, I'm going to show you some of the decks that are just awesome, and I'm looking at them right now, and I think all of them are self-published or otherwise individually produced, and in my mind that just makes them even more awesome. So look for that video here shortly too. So my favorite decks. First of all, I read almost exclusively with the Universal Weight, which if you haven't seen, I imagine most of you have. All it is it's the Rider-Waite deck with slightly brighter colors. It's a little bit softer. If you find the Rider-Waite imagery to be a little harsh just in terms of its color contrast, this is a nice alternative while remaining true to Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork. And these are the backs. Very simple. This deck is available anywhere that you could possibly buy tarot cards. And it's been my favorite for a long time, but I read with it exclusively because my tarot study has revolved very tightly around the Golden Dawn and assorted traditions within Western esotericism that are embodied in this particular deck. And in my mind, I mean, like, historically this is just true, overwhelmingly tarot decks are just copies of the Rider-Waite. And we might choose a copy because its images appeal to us, or because, oh, well, this one has cats in it and we like cats and that's great. But I really wanted to work with the original imagery in so much as that was possible, in a way that was still artistically pleasing, and the Universal Weight was a nice compromise. So a lot of the work that I've been doing recently has, I'll just shuffle through these randomly while I'm talking to you. A lot of the work that I've been doing on my own and with a correspondence course that I'm in has been revolving around Kabbalah, and again, Golden Dawn, like I said. So these particular images have become very important to me. And I found that when I tried to use other decks, it's not that I can't do readings, and it's not that those readings aren't effective or whatever, I just found that I was usually visualizing these images and trying to translate them into the ones that were literally in front of me. and that just seemed like a waste of, like an extra step that was a waste of time. So there have been instances where I will use other decks because a client has requested it. If they've got a deck that's a favorite for them, if it has particular kind of meaning for them, or if I just happen to not have my deck on me, I'm perfectly happy reading with something else, but this is what I prefer. Anyway, the other deck that I use pretty routinely, mostly when I read for myself, is the Marielle and Avalon. Actually recently reviewed this one, and I followed this artist on her blog before this deck was released and still follow her. She's actually in the process of releasing another version of this deck that's the sketches. I think it's just going to be called the Marielle Sketches deck. Anyway, these are the backs. So you've got the two linking Ouroboros, and these are just really, really rich while maintaining the same kinds of imagery, the same kinds of Kabbalistic themes, and there's lots of really rich esoteric stuff in this particular deck, and I found that it complements the universal weight for me in a way that's useful, and they're just really striking. And if you go earlier in my videos, I've actually reviewed this deck, so I won't talk about it so much here. But I'm still using it routinely, and it's a favorite. So, very intense. It's a dark deck, I would say. Really, really rich. So, if you haven't already, check out the Marielle. It's lovely packaging, too. So, definitely worth it. Okay, so other favorites. This one I acquired. This one has been very popular in the last year, which I'm really glad of, because it's just an excellent deck, and that's the Wild Unknown, which you can buy directly from the artist. I think the website is thewildunknown.com, but she's actually got an Etsy site. If you Google the Wild Unknown, it'll blow up with exactly what you want it to, so it won't be any trouble to find. But these are neat. They are ink drawings that have been sparingly colored, and lots of animal imagery. So if you appreciate that, this is a deck that you would like. Again, really beautifully packaged. The cards are unusually thick for a tarot deck. Really just pleasant to handle. Simplistic, beautiful, a little dark again, but lots of bird imagery. Here's the hermit, right? It's a turtle. So, death, there's a bird's carcass. These are really lovely. Again, there's the back. You can see, simple. Chariot is a horse. So really, really, really neat. I think she's also got a Tumblr. I see images from the Wild Unknown all over Instagram and Tumblr, and again, this is a popular deck right now, which I'm pleased about because it deserves to be. So if you're into animal imagery, or if you just like really amazing art, here's the Hanged Man. This is brilliant. This is one you should check out. This one is just fun and wonderful, and if you're a nerd, you'll appreciate. So this is the Supernatural Tarot, which the artist's name is Reg. I can't think of his last name. He's got an Etsy shop too. He also has a deck that he's made for Merlin, if you're a Merlin fan rather than Supernatural, or in addition to Supernatural. And these are just, here's the back. These are just wonderful and fun, and I have bought a copy of this deck for a couple of my friends who are Supernatural fans. It's just, you get a lot of the characters. There's Mary Winchester, bleeding from the abdomen. This is great. There's John. There's Cass, right? Hierophant. So it's just really fun. The Chariot, this is the best card in the whole deck. This right here makes it worth it. Ellen, Bobby is the hermit. So it's great. And the minor arcana are the court cards are also characters. The minor arcana are wands are guns, and of course Two of Swords is the swords of the angel dagger there. Cups is beer, right? What else? It's really great, and of course coins. So if you're a Supernatural fan, this is a fantastic deck that you should own. So go do that. I'll put links to these things down below. Two more. I'm going to mangle this pronunciation because I only speak English and really, really terrible French and Chinese. And I think it's German, but I don't know. This is the Rohrig Tarot. I'm so sorry. It's Rohrig, and there's an umlaut over the O. So people who are better at languages than me, have at it. This deck is just artistically one of my favorites. I think it's beautiful. It was one of my first tarot decks, and it's no longer in print, to my knowledge. A lot of the imagery is rooted, I think, in the Crowley deck, but just really, again, really rich. The only thing about this deck that I don't care for is its size. It's very difficult to handle for me. You can see, like, it's a little bit larger than my hand. But it's a combination, I guess, of computer-generated imagery and then drawing. But I think this is my favorite in the deck, is the Hermit. So, just really a really cool deck. And I've seen this go on eBay for quite a lot of money, in the hundreds, last I checked. But my understanding is that there's an American edition, and then there's a European edition, and the European edition is a little bit more valuable, and I think the difference is some of the images in the European deck are more explicit, by which I mean there's boobs, right? Because we can't have that, because what do those even look like? We're not supposed to see that stuff. But this one is really fantastic. So if you have extra money laying around, it's a worthwhile one to acquire. Maybe they've reprinted it right now. I wish they would, because it's lovely. This was actually the very first deck that I ever received a reading with. My best friend at the time in middle school, actually it might have been freshman year of high school, but she owned this deck and she gave me a reading with it. And it was one of those like high school sleepover things. You know, I think it was the same night we watched The Craft for the first time. I don't know. But she gave me a reading with this deck, and it was the thing where we pulled the cards and she took the book and just read it out loud to me, and we were all just like, oh my god, that's like scary accurate. Oh my god. Right, and of course that's not really what happened at all, but like that's how it feels when you're in the midst of it and you're 14 or 13 or whatever it was. So of course I had to have this deck, mostly for nostalgia. I bought it a few years after that, again, before it went out of print, and you could just buy it at Barnes & Noble for 20 bucks or whatever. But that's really cool. So Rohrig Tarot, Rohrig, R-O-H-R-I-G, umlaut. Sorry. Last deck. This one is super cool. This is the Tarot of the Name, by Wald Amberstone, and the cool thing about this deck, it's a tarot with a twist, right? The principle behind the Tarot of the Name is that before you have, and the back is just white, there's nothing to it. Before you have a deck that's filled with images, which are just the interpretations produced by an artist, you have the name, right? So before there's a picture of the Empress, there is the concept of the Empress and everything that necessarily entails. And what by itself does that name evoke, right? Is there something that we can tap into without the complication of the image? if that makes sense. And if it sounds overwhelming, it's because it is overwhelming. And this has been a really challenging deck to work with. So, for example, what you have here, and of course you've got red and white and black. These are all chemical colors. And when we're looking at the minor arcana, we don't have, instead of two of swords and three of swords and four of swords and whatever, we have the names of the Sephiroth upon which each of these minor arcana cards are essentially, within which they are rooted, if that makes sense. And Kabbalah, like, I'm way, way, way too new at this to even begin to explain what any of that means. But so go read a book and you'll be about on the same level that I am, which is just purely a novice. But so you'll have a card for each of the 10 Sephiroth, and then you'll have a card that's the sword, right? This concept of the sword, and what does that mean before the image gets attached to it. So lots to consider here. You know, you don't have a Queen of Pentacles, you just have a Queen. And what does that mean? So the name coupled with the color, it ends up, again, it sounds simplistic and kind of crazy, but it's actually been a really intense deck to work with. And this particular deck is a limited edition deck that Amberstone just put out in 2012, and it's available through tarotschool.com. And the Amberstones are great. I'm studying with Wald, and it's been one of the coolest things magically that I've ever done. So, yeah. Anyway, those are my favorite decks. And I'm going to make another video now where I show you some decks that I think just some of my viewers will appreciate. And if you're really into tarot, especially a lot of these decks, I'm noticing, I didn't even do this consciously, a lot of these decks are animal oriented. So if you're into animal decks, watch the video that's up there. Okay. Bye.